Honey Barrel Brown Ale. Is this a beer a Pooh Bear would love? Hi, it's Brainmuffin back with another beer review. The other day when I was in Jungle Gyms, I came across this from Alltech, our Kentucky Bourbon Ale fame. So we have a Honey Barrel Brown Ale, and that's what caught my mind. A Honey Barrel, that's interesting. 10% alcohol. Apparently this is a yearly beer. I've never seen it before, but once I looked at Untappd, there's a 15, there's a 16. This is definitely a 16. As far as I know, there's no date on here, so it really may not be something that... But at 10%, I want to go get some more and start aging this stuff. 10% ought to age for several years pretty well, maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe a little bit more, depending on your temperature of your cellar. You get your cellar around 50, 55 degrees, you can probably go for 5 or 6 years at least. So I've never tried this beer, so let's get to it. And I put this on the wrong side yet again. So right at the bat, we got a little bit of smoke. Oh, this is a very interesting aroma. Definitely a brown ale. I definitely need to let those things kick up. Look at that. Almost a soda-like head, so it's probably a bright tank, artificially carbonated. That's usually the giveaway, but not always. No residue in the bottom, so it's probably some, well, there's a little bit of residue. A little bit of yeast, so it's probably filtered a little bit. That is a very interesting aroma. So you definitely get the brown ale right off the bat. You get malt, but there's that hint of honey floating around in the background. I would love to know exactly how much honey they get into it. There's no real writing on there. Ale brewed with Kentucky honey and ginger, aged in oak bourbon barrels. Ah, see, it helps to actually read the label. It's not a honey barrel, it's a bourbon barrel, so there is honey in it. See what happens when I learn? That is very interesting. That is very interesting. Almost festive. Almost, I'm not sure when this comes out, but it kind of has a fall feel to it. The ginger is noticeable about mid-mouth. The honey is there, but it's not really sweet, which is very interesting. Especially, this has been sitting out for quite a while, so it's pretty warm. Relative, it's not like right out of the refrigerator, so the sweet, anything sweet ought to be available. Usually when a beer is really cold, all you have is the hop bitterness or bittering agents, and the malts and other sweetnesses don't tend to show up until the beer gets closer to proper temperature. At least an ale, anyway. So there I tried to inhale as I was drinking, and I held it in my mouth and still inhaled through my nose to kind of really get the aromas in. And yeah, it does have a little bit of alcohol warming, which at 10% isn't too bad. Quite often, a beer with alcohol warming means they fermented it too quickly. But at 10%, it's hard. Plus, some of that's coming from the bourbon. What I find interesting is, unlike the bourbon barrel stout, where they have their pale ale not bourbon barrel stout, but they have the Kentucky bourbon barrel ale, where bourbon's really present, and that pale ale, it's not really present. There's a little hint of vanilla, but not much at all. And that burn may actually be more from, and bitterness may actually be from the bourbon. The remnants of what's in the bourbon barrel. Wow. To me, that's, considering their other bourbon barrel aged stuff where the bourbon's quite noticeable, the barrel aged stout is phenomenal. It's one of my favorites. I'm going to have to do that with chocolate and raspberry ice cream sometime. But in this, the bourbon is really just kind of subdued, just kind of there. The ginger's there from mid-mouth back. Excuse me for belching. And even on the burp, there's no hop bitterness. There's no bitterness at all. It's just kind of ginger and honey and a little hint of malt and no hint of bourbon at all. But that, for a 10% beer, that drinks pretty smooth. And the ginger kind of gives me a fall festival, festive type. This could be a Christmas beer, a Thanksgiving beer. I'm going to rate it a 4.5 out of 5 on Untappd. And now I've leveled up a badge. Hey, if you want to follow me on Untappd, just look for Brainmuffin, and I'll accept your friend request. gladly. Because if you're on Untapped, then it means you're a beer fiend and you're a friend of mine. Even if we agree on nothing else, but we agree on great beer, you're still a friend of mine. And I have friends that are like that, where every other question we're probably the exact opposites. One friend, he's a communist, he's an atheist, anyway. Wow, that is really good. To me, it's very different from the other Alltech bourbon stuff. The bourbon isn't in your face, it's not in your nose. Lots of honey. You got honey flavor. I'd like to know what kind of honey, because I have a feeling it's buckwheat. I don't think it's clove. It's not real flowery honey, and it's not really sweet. Buckwheat honey is not as sweet. I'm definitely going to have to do some research on that. Probably should before. But that's part of reviewing the beers. And somebody probably knows, and they could put it in the comments below and say, no, it's whatever honey. Something I've never even heard of. Kentucky bluegrass honey or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is quite good. I don't know what I would pair this with. This is, to me, a beer that I have the wrong glass. I really ought to have it in a snifter or a tulip-shaped glass. If I would have known it was this aromatic, I would have done that. To me, this is a beer you're drinking after a meal. You're sitting around chatting with friends, talking about whatever you want to talk about. And this is a beer you're just sipping on. Maybe a little bit of cheese every once in a while, a mild cheese to kind of clean the tongue off. You could probably do some nuts and some roasted nuts and lightly salted, maybe lightly, I don't know. Maybe some candied almonds, maybe? To me, I don't know. To me, this is a beer to have by itself, not with something. Yeah, I would definitely just, maybe cheese and crackers every once in a while. Take a bite of the cheese and cracker and then, go back to enjoying the beer, talking with your friends, chatting about whatever. This is definitely a beer. It's just kind of, let's finish out the evening and call it a night. I mean, at 10%, you're going to want to call it a night pretty soon, but that is a phenomenal sipping beer. I mean, that is really a good sipping beer. So I wouldn't pair it with anything but a mild cheese or various mild cheeses. You can do a cheddar. I wouldn't do a sharp cheddar, but mozzarella would work. Any mild cheese with crackers, whole wheat cracker, Ritz cracker, I don't care. Just not put anything on it. And just kind of, cleanse your palate and go on. So there you go. 4.5 out of 5. Definitely a recommended sipping beer. Put it in the right glass instead of one like this. I mean, this has got a decent nose, but put it in a tulip glass. Probably pour it straight out of the refrigerator. That way it slowly warms up and it slowly opens up to you as you drink it, as you sip it, as you enjoy it. Probably take like a half an hour, 45 minutes to drink this beer. And really enjoy it just kind of as you're chatting or just sitting, maybe just sitting around reading, I don't know, watching your Christmas tree, whatever. But that's definitely a sipping beer and very good. Thank you, Alltech. You guys make some good stuff and this is really great. I'm gonna have to, I actually know someone that works for the brewery down in Kentucky. I need to ask her what kind of things they have, what kind of honey, and I can get that information. Maybe I'll put it in the description if I learn it fast enough. All right, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for clicking like. Thanks for subscribing. If you've tried this beer, let me know your comments. If you got any questions or whatever. If you got a beer you want me to review, please put it in a comment or send me a message. We'll get it done. We've had several requests before, and I'll try to be a little bit more on the ball with these reviews. All right, thanks. See you.